Lee S. Shulman is an educational psychologist who has made notable contributions to the study of teaching, assessment of teaching, and the fields of medicine, science, and mathematics. He's a professor emeritus at Stanford Graduate School of Education, past president of the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, past president of the American Educational Research Association, and the recipient of several awards recognizing his educational research. Among his many achievements, Shulman is credited with popularizing the phrase pedagogical content knowledge, which is the synthesis of both the act and content of teaching for the betterment of students' understanding. So, from his Wikipedia page, we know that he's overqualified to be giving the commencement speech for Kehillah. But here's what I know about Lee Shulman that Wikipedia might not, that makes him the perfect person to send us off into the real world to fend for ourselves. He's a mensch. Being in the Silicon Valley, this hub of technology, one hears words like innovation much more often than collaboration. The survival of the fittest message of get yourself out there fast before anyone else does can be both overwhelming and unfortunately inspiring, leaving little room for exploration and adventure in learning with all of this rushing. Kehillah has spent 4 years trying to unteach us this Darwinian idea, this rushing, for the sake of our menschhood. We've learned about derech eretz, the way of the land. For those of you unfamiliar, derech eretz is this Jewish value that, when summed up, basically just means have common decency and be a dugma, a role model. Kehillah has said, yeah, I know out there it's all about winning, but in here, the freshman class can win tug-of-war or Torah trivia, and the rest of the school will applaud. And as budding mensches, dugmaot, we've applauded. Kehillah is an oasis in many ways and for many reasons. What I will highlight today, though, is the way in which my high school experience has been a more formative force in my relationship with learning than I can imagine any other high school being. As students, we've learned how to dive into what might interest us and see what comes of it, be it a new app or a series of finger paintings. There is no rush to win, only a sense of urgency to pursue whatever it is you feel like pursuing in that moment. Our commencement speaker today embodies all of this. When I first met Lee, I was probably around 6, and he was wearing the same exuberant smile he wears today. Wikipedia couldn't confirm this for me, and I was too busy finger painting to call and check, but something tells me that Lee Shulman won in his own way, not through pushing ahead of the pack, elbows out, but through that smile. It is with immense gratitude and love that I introduce to you, Lee Shulman, a true mensch.
A number of weeks ago, I met this group informally at Kehillah. Darren thought, and I agreed, that too many commencement speakers parachute in, show up about where I'm standing, and get out of Dodge as rapidly as possible. And it might be a good idea to have a chance to talk with them a bit. We spent about an hour together, and as I explained to my wife Judy when I came home, I had fallen in love. Now, Judy has a special investment, too, because Judy Shulman was a member of the original board that founded Kehillah 15 years ago. In fact, more than that, because it was before there was an entering class. And so there is an investment in this institution that resides within the Shulman family. But if Darren had called me the next morning and said, Lee, could you fill in as a teacher for the next few weeks? Boychik, you would have had everything. At breakfast this morning, I began doing a little calculation, which was frightening. My Jewish high school graduation, I graduated from a Jewish day school. I was even one of the student speakers, and it happened a mere 62 years ago. Some of you weren't even born. But don't worry about taking notes. I have no idea what I said at graduation. But while I was sitting at breakfast doing this calculation, we're watching CNN. And who's leading a wonderful discussion of the news on CNN? One of CNN's senior correspondents, Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper, a graduate of Akiba Jewish Day School in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who in fact was married by his sister-in-law, Lauren Hahn Tapper, the rabbi at Yavna Day School, where some of you may have come from. So I guess at least two of us, and many, many more, are here to attest that preparation at a Jewish day school in which you were immersed in Jewish studies, as well as the vast realm, not quite as large as Jewish studies, as all of other human knowledge, can do good things for your life in the general world. And boy, is this true of this group. What did we talk about? Well, when I met with this class, we talked about the giving pledge. I asked how many of them had heard of it, and most of them had. Here is the pledge that Bill and Melinda Gates, that Warren Buffett, and a growing number of other people of immense wealth have made publicly to give away at least half of their money during their lifetime. This is pretty important. And I think it's a wonderful act of philanthropy. But I asked the class, what about the rest of us? The last time I checked my bank accounts, I'm not very close to being a billionaire. But I feel this notion of giving away at least half of what you have, who you are, on an ongoing basis to the world around you is a pledge all of us should take. The class agreed that they should take it, and I hope that you agree that you should take it. But that raises the question of what wealth do we have to apportion to the rest of the world? And the class and I began talking about it, and I suggested to them, in the 4 years that you've been here, you have become enormously wealthy. What's the nature of your wealth, and in what sense can you give an enormous portion of it on an ongoing basis to those around you? And they began talking about the wealth that you've been hearing from them for the last few minutes. A wealth of understanding, deep understanding, broad understanding, but an understanding whose depth is matched by a growing kind of skepticism and analytic capacity, so they recognize that they must not only absorb but critically evaluate and review. So much at the heart of the Jewish tradition. But in addition to the understanding, they've developed a remarkable character. I think we've seen this again in the remarks that have been offered. What a lovely sense of responsibility, of attachment, of inspired caring for those around them. This is a group whose wealth will not simply or only, halavai, be represented by their portfolio of equities, but their commitment to equity, to justice, to a world that they can make a fair and more giving place. They pledge that. And their character must be paired with active caring and acts of caring. That's how they play out. That's their giving pledge here at Kehillah. Ben Zoma in the Pirkei Avot has a lovely phrase when he asks, Miza Ashir, who is a wealthy man or woman? Let me feminize it. Hasmecha bechelka. She who is happy and pleased with whatever chelik, whatever piece of wealth or understanding or good fortune they have. I love that Hebrew word chelik. That word peace. Because nobody has it all, and yet the giving pledge says that whatever you have, you owe a huge chelik, a portion of it, to those around you. And we talked about how do you share your understanding? How do you share the depth of your knowledge? And of course, the obvious one is how I have spent my life for more than 62 years. To learn carries with it the obligation to teach. Yes, some of us are privileged to have been able to devote our lives to teaching, to the advancement of teaching. I look at the faculty, this is a very happy group of people. Jake, we need a poem for this. And yet, you don't have to be a professional teacher to teach. You can teach. You can share your wisdom, your understanding, your skepticism, your doubt every single day of your life. As a parent, as a citizen, as a member of any profession, as a craftsman. That is our responsibility, class. That's our giving pledge. I still remember one of my favorite stories about the teacher in a Jewish day school who's sitting very late at night preparing his class the next day. And he turns to his spouse, who's also a teacher, and says, you know, I've been thinking, if I were, let's take a random billionaire, Donald Trump, I would be richer than Trump. His wife, being a very analytic thinker, says, Chaim, if you were Donald Trump, you would be as rich as Donald Trump. How could you be richer? It's very simple. If I were Trump, I could still do a little teaching on the side. But that's our responsibility as Jews, no matter what we do, and as those who connect with the Jewish community. Teaching is something we not only do on the side, it is in great measure what defines us. Another thing that I like about the word chelik, and we discussed it in my visit with the class, is that another favorite word of mine has the word chelik in the middle of it. It's the word machloket. And I asked the class what a machloket was, and what did you tell me? An argument. This is a class that's learned to argue. But to argue in the spirit of machloket. Why is the Hebrew word for a part of the word for an argument? Because our view of an argument is it happens when two or more people, each of whom has only part of the understanding, engages in debate and disputation, and in the act of argument, especially if they listen and not just talk, they get smarter. And all the participants in the machloket come closer to a full understanding. In fact, some of you may remember, I'm sure the class does because they're younger than most of you, but Mr. Schloss is here and he'll attest to the mathematical accuracy. You remember studying fractions in 3rd or 4th grade? It was so paradoxical. We had finally learned that when you multiply things, they get bigger, and when you divide them, they get smaller. And then you learn to multiply and divide fractions. Talk about a bait and switch. When you multiplied a fraction by a fraction, did things get bigger? Oh, they're so smart. They got smaller. But worse yet, When you divided a fraction by a fraction, what did you get? Bigger. But that's a Jewish insight, my friend. That's the giving pledge. Because there's a secret about giving the wealth of your understanding and your character that makes it far more advantageous than giving away your money, which of course we recommend strongly. Right, Darren? Yes. Giving away your understanding is like multiplying fractions. If I have $1 million and I give away 999,000 of those $1 million, I know they're quickly doing their arithmetic. How much do I have left? They said 1,000, it's 10,000. But you know, estimation is a very important skill. But if I give away everything I know and understand to my students, I am not only no poorer than I was, like dividing fractions rather, I've given up part of my knowledge and I end up being richer. Because the act of teaching makes us smarter. The act of argumentation makes us smarter. The giving pledge of understanding and character is the royal road to wealth, not the way to grow poor. And so it is, many of the speakers have talked about blessings. You know, Jews have a blessing for nearly everything. We bless a beautiful sunset. We bless our kid at bar bat mitzvah, since as it turns out we're no longer responsible for their sins. We bless it when we survive an operation and feel better. My favorite blessing, though, is a blessing that we are to say in the presence of a great teacher. The blessing is Baruch shechalak michochmato lire'av. Listen to that word chelak again. A great teacher is somebody who gives away a portion of her wisdom to those who respect her. Chelak again. And so our blessing for this class is very simple. Take the giving pledge and use it to give everything you are and you will become. Your habits of mind and your habits of the heart. Your understanding and your caring. And class of 2017, may you be the kinds of people, and I anticipate that you will be, about whom it will be said, we are blessed to be in the presence of those who are always giving a huge part of themselves to all those around them. Mazal tov, congratulations, felicidades, go forth.